Hello everyone, welcome to a lecture series of a financial management. Today is lecture number 18. So in this lecture number 18 of a financial management, we will see what are the different decision making capabilities which is related to a business owner or the manager of that company. So if you see, there is a very great saying by Ratan Tata, a great industrialist, that as per his opinion, he says that he don't make a right decision. So what he says, I don't make a right decision, but first I take the decision and then I make it right. So this sentence it has a very great meaning in the any business organization. So taking a decision, that is a very important thing. So whether it is a right or wrong, first of all, a person should have a capability to run any business or to run any organization. First he should have the capability of taking a decision. So it may be a right or it may be a wrong. In future, the future it will decide, but taking a decision, that is a very important thing. So a good industrialist or a good businessman, once he take a decision, he tries to make that decision right. So that is the skill of a any good businessman. Now if you see in depth, today we will see uh, what a decision making, what any businessman or any owner, he takes a decision under uncertainty conditions. So there is not always a favorable condition for a businessman, always. So you have to take critical decisions in some uncertain conditions only also. So in this course today we will see by taking some examples about an decision making under uncertainties also. So if you see the slide of decision making, so there are so many parameters. What is the meaning of decision, types of decision, programmed and non-programmed decision, major and minor decision. So many things we are going to see. Now if you see, uh, in this, if we look at some common examples of our day-to-day life, then we will move to decision making of an industrialist or a businessman. So very few example we will take of our day-to-day life. So first example that we could like to talk about is decision making in our anyone's educations. Now think about yourself when you were in school. So those of you that are not in school, your parents had to make a decision such as which school should I put my child. Okay, so there are different pros and cons you can imagine. So some school might be close to your house, so there may be other school that are better but further away. So should we put in one that is closer or should we put in one that is further away? So also there is lot of uncertainties. So if you think about it, right now the school may be highly ranked. We do not we do not know how it will be 12 years from now. So that is another thing to consider. So we also don't know what the child interests are going to be. So so should we put in a school that caters a lot to sports? So should we put that caters a lot of cultural activities, or something that is heavily to the which is very heavy into the academics? So those are the types of decision that we may take as an individual. Now another decision we make as we go through. So maybe when we go to a 10th class, so is to split into going to a science stream or say a commerce stream or art stream. So I know most of us, pretty much like to do what our friends and what our neighbors and everybody that we know does. But you know think about it, So I mean a lot to I mean a lot of us pay a lot of attention to what is right thing to do, and this is a very difficult decision. So, and we need to think about how best to make a decision as to what stream to take, a science stream or a commerce stream or art stream. Now another thing that impact a lot of a people that impact a lot of people is, should we spend time and money studying for an entrance exam? Now this is another interesting decision to make. So think of the IIT JEE exam. Now if you think, if you want to pass that exam, you are looking at investing a significant amount of money, amount of time, maybe a 4 years of your life, and a lot of money going to be pay for tuitions. Now is this all a good thing to do? Of course, if you don't do that, you are not going to enter. So that is the assumption, isn't it? I do know of a people who are entered without going through any of these tuitions also. But think about it. That is a decision that we need to make. So another decision is, should we be taking a private tuitions while going to a school? I mean that is decision to make, and again it is a issue of money that you lose right now, or possibilities much nicer future. So lot of time, you know, this is another thing, you know. So should I keep the money and have a good time, or should I save the money by investing into a child tuitions? Okay, so this kind of a thing any individual can think on it. So that is the another decision that we all make in terms of education. So another decision that we make is at a school level. So which I perceive most of you uh, listening to this are going to be in. So you know, both before going to a college, which college should I attend? Okay, so what field should I specialize? So that is again a question mark. So should I take a mechanical engineering? So should I take a electrical engineering, or should I go into a complete different field? So maybe take a class in a management. Okay, so what electives to take? So if you see in your syllabus right now also, there are so many elective subjects are there, and you have to take a decision by seeing into a future. So which elective will be a much more suitable to you as per your career options. So what elective to take? I have 3 or 4 electives to choose from. So what class to take? So how do you make this decision? Okay, so that is something to think about. So there is a lot of uncertainty, right? So what is the uncertainty here? So well, you don't know how your future is going to pay out. So you really don't know what you are passionate about. So you probably don't have a good idea what you are good at and what you are not good at. So in those situation, it is hard to make these decisions. So there are a lot of uncertainties in terms of how things could pay out. For example, if you say, I have a lot of friends that did and went through an engineering program, but they right now don't do any engineering in their real life. So those are the things to think about. So there is a lot of environmental changes between now and maybe 10 years from now or 20 years from now. So so these are the decisions to be made under tremendous amount of uncertainties. Now, if we see, another question to ask is, should we go ahead and take up a job, or should we get an advanced degree, a master degree, or a PhD degree? So this is the decision to be made, because your life could be a very different depending on how you make a decision or you take a decision. Another thing is, should we become an entrepreneur? So that is a risky decision. Now we take a risk in becoming an entrepreneur. So our venture could be a very successful, which is what we hope to, and when we take up this position. So we could also go into something that may not. So there is a certain amount of risk, but there are certain definitely tremendous payoff if you become an entrepreneur. Now the question that we want to ask is, how do you go about making these decisions? So what do you think in terms of, we visited some of this earlier. So we want to have, and we want to make a decision so that we are somewhat conservative. We want to have a wonderful life, a happy life. So usually these are the criteria that are used to make these decisions. And we also talk about some of the uncertainties involved. So we talk about how, things could pay out, how the environment could change, how life could change as we go along. So we could get, married to someone else who has a very different plan, and things could be. So things could be a very different from when you actually have to make a decision. So also, what criteria could you see, right? So like I said, how there are good a bunch of criteria. So towards the end of this topic, we will look at a set of criteria that one uses. So now let we move on the second example of a decision making. So in the decision making, we are looking at somewhat more industrial settings, supply chain settings. So, if you are not familiar, supply chain is one in which there are products that are supplied to. So, let us say you have a trailer. So, you have if you have a retailer. So, you have a retailer who like a store, okay. So, like a shop who gets item from a suppliers. So, it becomes a retailer, and then a customer becomes come and buy from a retailer. Okay, so suppose this is the scenario in front of you. A retailer is there, and the customer comes and buy from a retailer different items of a shop. So one of a retailer or one of a supply chains success story is that of a Dell computer. So if you take this example, a very good example. So Dell is a very well-known computer company in US, and they were the first to innovate in a certain way that completely changed a lot of things that we do today. So we are talking about the early scene, if you remember, in 1990s, where there were several computer companies. So there were HP, Compaq, to name a few, and they were selling all the computers. So what they were doing is, they were putting these computers in different stores, and whoever come, they come and they pick the computer they want. So however, think about this. So there are so many different computer configurations possible. So some might want a certain type of configurations, like a hard disk or a RAM, or they may have a preference for a storage. So there are so many things that are possible. Now you cannot take all this. So various combinations, and store different computer catering to individuals. So in fact, it becomes a hard to even predict how many people could like what type of computer. So one thing that Dell did very smartly is to say, okay, we will have an online platform. So where you could pick what type of processor you could like, so what type of storage you could like, and then they could put together, they could customize the computer for as per your demand. Now when they customize the computer, and and if you see, and when they customize the computer and ship it, there is a downside. So they can't get your computer within zero time. So you really are going to look at waiting for a week to get a computer. So that is a risk that they took. You know that. So will customer be happy to configure the computer of their choice, trading off some time to get their machines in their houses? So there was a risk that they took, but they had some side of a benefit also, if you see. So Dell was able to understand what various customers are going to need. So they understood what are going to be their demand. They understood what are going to be the need of various companies. Okay. And turn out that Dell was also able to carry raw material and the order come in. So they put together a computer and they were able to ship it away. Now, this is an extremely important thing. Now, instead of carrying the raw material, I mean finished goods, I'm sorry. So, instead of carrying a finished good, what Dell ended up doing is they just carried raw material. So, they carried a whole bunch of storage unit. They had carried a whole bunches of processors. So depending on, they had a little motherboard, and then they had a little box, and then they could keep putting stuff in depending on what the customer asked for. So as per the demand of a customer. So some people want a certain type of a speakers, and then they put the appropriate audio device and the video device and so on. So they really did a good job, very great job of just carrying the raw material and customizing a computer. So this way they were able to do what is called, we call as a pooling risk, and that way so they were able to manage the uncertainties in terms of what the customer demand could be and so on. Now when there is a tremendous amount of variabilities, and there is also a lot of uncertainties, a lot of risk, and we go into define into a next set of a topic. So what is the variabilities, what is the uncertainties, and what is a risk? But let's say, when all this is there, companies are going to carry some inventories at regional warehouses. So instead of having this multiple retailer holding inventories, they will put the inventories in a warehouses. Okay. So in warehouses, and then depending on whether the demand are, they could go ahead and satisfy those demands from the central warehouses. So this is a very good idea. So they'll have followed. So if you see, there are the lot of decision making conditions are there. We have taken initially a very practical day to day life examples, that how the decision making for every step or day to day life we have to take a decisions. So that we don't know in future whether that decision it is a right, or that decision it is wrong. So there are the different parameters that one can decide the decision will be a right or decision will be a wrong. But firmly we have to take a decision, and then we have to make it right. So same thing it is applicable for any organization. So same thing it is applicable for any industrialist, that any individual have to take a decision, and after that, uh, that decision it will be right or wrong, it depend, or the future will be decided. But taking a decision, that is a very important thing. So by taking some assumptions, or based on the assumptions, or based on future based on the assumptions, or based on the future predictability, any individual or any organization, they can decide what is what decision he can take as per the good growth as per the favorability of the industries or that organization. So in next lecture we will continue this decision making possibilities by taking another examples. Till then we will stop here. Thank you.